Lena never meant to hear the conversation. She was only there to drop off a file before leaving for the day. The office lights were dim, the hallway quiet, and the glass door to the conference room was slightly open. She slowed when she heard her name. That single sound pulled her closer without thought. Inside, Miriam sat at the long table, her posture perfect as always. Across from her was Daniel, her husband, calm and composed, his fingers resting on a stack of papers Lena recognized instantly. They were her reports, her work, the foundation of a project she had carried for months. Daniel spoke first, his voice low but firm. He explained the problem in clean terms, like a puzzle already solved. There were gaps in the accounts, mistakes that could not be traced easily. Questions were asked, someone would have to answer for them. He paused, then said Lena's name again, this time like a suggestion. Miriam frowned, just slightly, not in anger, but in calculation. She asked if there were other options. Daniel shook his head. He said Lena was capable, trusted, and already close to the work. It would make sense. People would believe it. The company would be safe. Their lives would stay in place. Silence followed. Lena held her breath, her heart pounding so loudly she feared it might give her away. She waited for Miriam to defend her, to say no, to say this was wrong. Yes, Miriam finally said. The word landed like a door closing. Daniel nodded, satisfied. They began discussing timing, steps, how to keep things quiet. Lena didn't hear the rest. Her body moved before her mind did, backing away, slipping down the hall, out into the night air. She stood there for a long moment, shaking, the city lights blurring in front of her eyes. Lena had given everything to that job. Late nights, missed family dinners, weekends sacrificed without complaint. She believed in hard work, in earning her place. Miriam had once called her the spine of the department. Daniel had praised her attention to detail, their trust. Had felt real, solid now. It felt like a setup. The next few days passed in a haze. No one acted differently. Miriam smiled in meetings. Daniel nodded politely when they crossed paths. The normalcy made it worse. Lena waited for something to change, for a sign that she had misunderstood. None came. Then the meeting request arrived. It was brief. Too brief. Human resources, Miriam, present. Daniel not included. The room smelled faintly of coffee and paper. Miriam spoke with practiced calm, explaining that discrepancies had been found. That responsibility fell on Lena, that the company had no choice. Lena tried to speak, but the words tangled in her throat. She asked for proof, for a chance to explain. Miriam avoided her eyes. HR slid a document across the table. Termination effective immediately by the time. Lena stepped outside with a small box of her belongings. The truth was clear. This was never about mistakes. It was about protection, about choosing who mattered more. At home, the silence was unbearable. Lena replayed everything again and again, looking for the moment where she could have changed the outcome. She felt foolish for trusting them, for believing loyalty went both ways. Anger rose, sharp and sudden, but it did not explode. It settled. Days later, rumors reached her through old coworkers. An audit was coming. Leadership was nervous. Lena realized something important then. They were afraid, not of her, but of the truth she carried. She opened her laptop and began gathering files, emails, notes, timelines, every piece of evidence that showed how decisions were made, who approved what, who benefited. She didn't rush. She didn't panic. This was not about impulse. It was about control. Still, doubt crept in late at night. Lena remembered Miriam's hesitation, that brief pause before the yes. She wondered if Miriam felt guilt, or if she slept just fine. She wondered if Daniel ever thought of her at all. The betrayal had not only taken her job, it had changed how she saw people. Trust now felt fragile, like glass already cracked. She told herself she was doing this for justice, not revenge, but the line between the two blurred more each day. One evening, as rain tapped against the window, Lena closed her laptop and stared at her reflection in the dark screen. She barely recognized herself. The woman looking back was focused, alert, no longer naive. Hurt had shaped her into something sharper. She knew this was only the beginning. The fall had already happened. What came next would decide who she became. Afterward, and for the first time since hearing that single word through a half-open door, Lena felt ready to decide. Lena woke each morning with a tight feeling in her chest, like her body remembered the betrayal before her mind fully caught up. The days no longer had structure. No meetings, no deadlines. Just time, and time gave her thoughts too much space. She filled it by working on her plan. She treated it like a project, the same way she had handled everything at the company. Step by step, calm, controlled. She reviewed documents with care, reading each email slowly, tracing decisions back to their source. Patterns formed quickly. What had seemed like confusion at work now looked intentional. Mistakes were ignored when they helped the right people. Questions were shut down quietly. Lena had not failed. She had been positioned at first. The discovery brought relief, then it brought anger. Not loud anger, but steady pressure. She felt it while making coffee, while walking past office buildings, while checking her bank balance. It was always there, reminding her of what was taken. Friends encouraged her to let go. They said time would fix things. Lena smiled and nodded, but their words felt thin. Time did nothing without truth. She wasn't looking for sympathy. She wanted balance. Still, doubt followed her. Late at night, when the city was quiet, she wondered if she was becoming the thing she hated. She told herself she wanted fairness, not damage, but the idea of watching Miriam and Daniel face consequences brought a sharp sense of comfort. That scared her. She began writing everything down, not just facts, but thoughts. How it felt to be chosen as the sacrifice truth of the fall. How it felt to hear that yes echo in her mind. The writing helped her see herself clearly. She wasn't driven by chaos. She was driven by the need to be seen. Meanwhile, small signs of strain appeared at the company. Former coworkers reached out carefully, asking how she was. Some hinted that leadership seemed nervous. Projects stalled. Meetings ran long. Lena said little. She listened. Daniel crossed her mind often. She tried to understand him, not excuse him. He believed systems mattered more than individuals. His world sacrifice was necessary. One always paid the cost. This time it was Lena. Knowing this didn't ease the pain, but it gave shape to it. Miriam was harder to read. Lena remembered her pauses, her careful tone. Miriam had chosen safety over integrity, comfort over courage. Lena wondered if she felt trapped by her own choice, or if she had already justified it fully. The question that haunted Lena was simple. What did she want to happen next? Not what could happen, but what should. Exposure would bring relief, but also attention she didn't want. Silence would bring peace, but at the price of truth. An unexpected email arrived one afternoon from an external consultant. Short, polite, asking if Lena would be willing to discuss her former role. Her heart raced as she read it. This was not chance, this was movement. She didn't respond right away. She went for a long walk, letting the city noise steady her. She thought about the woman she had been before the betrayal. Hardworking, trusting, proud of her ethics. She did not want to lose that woman to bitterness. When she returned home, she opened her files again. She organized them with care, separating emotion from evidence. If she spoke, she would speak cleanly. No exaggeration, no revenge dressed as truth. As days passed, the tension inside her grew sharper. Every choice felt heavy. She imagined different endings, each with its own cost. In one, she exposed everything and watched lives unravel. In another, she walked away and carried the weight alone. Sleep became difficult. Her mind replayed conversations, imagined confrontations that never happened. She caught herself practicing calm responses out loud, then laughed bitterly at herself. Then came a message from an old coworker she trusted. The audit was real, serious, leadership was worried. Names were being discussed behind closed doors. Lena sat still for a long time after reading that. She realized something important. The power had already shifted. They were no longer in control. She was, but power brought responsibility. Whatever she did next would define her, not them. Revenge promised release. Restraint promised something quieter, something deeper. That night, Lena stood by her window and watched the city lights flicker on. She felt the pull of justice and the pull of mercy stretching her in opposite directions. She did not yet know which would win. All she knew was that the moment of decision was coming fast. And there would be no turning back once it arrived. The message arrived early in the morning. Lena read it once, then again, feeling the weight of it settle in her chest. The audit team wanted to speak with her, not casually, not as a formality. They wanted details, records, context. They wanted the truth. She sat at the kitchen table, hands wrapped around a cold cup of coffee, and felt how close everything was now. This was the edge she had been walking toward for weeks. Every late night, every file organized, every doubt faced alone, had led here. Lena did not rush. She showered, dressed carefully, and reviewed her notes one final time. She told herself this was not about anger. It was about clarity. If she spoke, she would speak cleanly. If she stayed silent, it would be a choice, not fear. The meeting was held in a quiet office far from her old workplace. Neutral walls, neutral faces. The auditors listened more than they spoke. Lena answered every question directly. She explained processes, decisions, approvals. She showed how responsibility had been shifted step by step. She never raised her voice. She never accused. She let the facts do the work. As she spoke, something unexpected happened. The tightness she had carried for months began to loosen. She was no longer defending herself in her head. She was simply telling the truth. When it was over, the lead auditor thanked her and said nothing more. Lena walked out into the sunlight, feeling lighter, but also empty. She had crossed the point of no return. Days passed with no word. Lena waited, not with fear, but with awareness. She knew outcomes were forming without her. She focused on rebuilding her life. She applied for roles, met new people, explored opportunities she had once ignored because she was too loyal to look elsewhere. Then the news came quietly. Miriam stepped down. Not publicly shamed, not celebrated, just gone. Daniel's role was reduced, his authority limited. Internal changes were announced, policies rewritten, accountability spoken about in careful language. Lena read the announcement on her phone while sitting in a park. She felt no joy, no triumph, just a deep, steady calm. The world had not exploded. Lives had not been destroyed. But the truth had shifted things into place. That evening, Daniel sent her a message, short, formal. He acknowledged her professionalism. He said he understood her actions, even if he disagreed with them. He wished her well. Lena stared at the screen for a long time before closing it. She did not reply. Not because she wanted power, but because she had nothing left to say. Miriam never reached out. Weeks later, Lena started a new job. Smaller company, clear values. On her first day, she felt nervous in a way she hadn't expected. Trust did not come easily anymore. But she showed up anyway. Sometimes, late at night, the old questions returned. She wondered what would have happened if she had chosen silence, if she had let it all go. But those thoughts faded quickly. She knew she had not acted to hurt. She had acted to correct. Revenge had tempted her with sharp images of downfall and regret. She had imagined satisfaction in seeing others suffer the way she had. But when the moment came, she chose something harder. She chose truth without cruelty. Lena learned that revenge does not always look like destruction. Sometimes it looks like restraint. Sometimes it looks like refusing to become what broke you. As months passed, the memory of that word yes lost its power. It became part of her story, not the center of it. She had faced betrayal, stood in the fire of choice, and walked out, changed. But not hollow. One evening, as she closed her laptop after a long day of honest work, Lena smiled to herself. Not because she had one, but because she had survived without losing who she was. And in that quiet moment, she understood the final truth. Justice can heal. Revenge only repeats the wound.